Deep in the backwoods of Virginia, past an abandoned road, lay a half-destroyed shack, grayed with age. Part of the roof was caved in, and the door hung by the bottom hinge. The one window was all busted over the grass. The glass is coated in blood. Rusting farm tools lay scattered around the small shack. All of them are in a horrible disrepair, except for one, a scythe. So clean is its blade that the sun reflects in a brilliant ray of light off the metal. It's out of place. It was never meant to be. Just like the shack. Just like the owner of both. Place yourself 10 years ago. The shack is still in decent repair. The tools just a little less rusty. The window isn't broken. The door still on its hinges. The scythe is just a normal tool. In the shack lives a man, his wife, and their 7-year-old child. The man owns the rust and ruin surrounding the shack for a mile. Does he farm like the horse-drawn plows and harvesters suggest? No. He collects a welfare check from the government and drinks what little there is away. His greasy black hair hangs just past his shoulders. A small beard is appearing on his face. The air he breathes is wasted. The woman, though she thought was in love when she married this fine specimen of human genetics, now she stays with him more for fear than for love. The beatings have long ago stopped hurting. Now they just hit deadened flesh. She still brings forth tears, for if she doesn't, the beatings intensify to the use of the tools from the yard. At the center of her world was a boy. Her boy. He was never quite right. The moment he came out of the womb, they could tell. As they put it, he was a retarded son of a bitch. He couldn't help that his mother had smoked whilst he was being developed. He couldn't help that he had been punched during the many beatings of his mother. He couldn't help that his birth was premature. He couldn't help that his life nearly ended because of a clothes hanger. He couldn't help the beatings his father had given him since before he could walk. No others were around for miles. It was just the three of them and whatever wildlife still remained around the broken home. Being isolated from the world, the boy knew nothing but violence and drinking. He tried to please his father, but would be slapped if he even showed him a picture he drew, just for him. The boy would go and cry in his room, which was really more of a closet than anything else. He has nothing, no food except that which he finds in the meager supply that the food stands bring in. No toys except that which he makes, and only 2 burlap sacks and a rope for clothes. He draws on the walls within the small confines of the space he has been granted. The charcoal is old, about a year or so. His pictures depict a happy family, all holding hands in front of a perfect shack. He has other children to play with, a pet deer, and a brother. To him, it's a perfect existence. He finds a box full of old books in the woods. His fingers are unsure of what to do, how to treat these things he's never seen before. He learns how to flip the pages after a few minutes. One by one, he flips through the pages of every book, making sure he missed no pictures. Only one of the pictures really catches interest. It is a picture of a man on a pole in the middle of a tall grass that had ears growing up the sides of him. He is filled with straw and has a skin of burlap. Stitched lips and eyes define the word of beauty to him. In his room, it is hung on the wall from a nail that he hammered in with his own skull. Days passed as usual. He found food in the woods. His father drank away the well from him. Both he and his mother were beaten. Something was different in the latest beatings. It was something that only the mind like his could pick up. But it was there. Each of the beatings grew in length and intensity by one kick or a punch, and it was getting worse, and the boy knew it. His mother was still oblivious to the pain, but the bruises didn't fade anymore, leaving her a disgusting blotched blue, black, and yellow living carcass. The most recent beating was especially brutal. The boy was sitting in his room, drawing a picture of the burlap man stuffed with hay. It was his most beautiful picture yet. His father ripped open his door and grabbed him by the arm and yanked him out of the room. "Daddy, my picture!" the boy protested, his quivering lips struggling to form words. The man slapped him. "Shut up, retard," he yelled. He hit the boy again and threw him against the wall. The boy screamed in pain as he felt a rib or two break. Tears ran down his deformed face, creating ditches in the dirt caked there. The man approached him again and kicked him in the stomach, causing the boy to throw up. He continued to be kicked and punched, taking him to the precipice of death. His mother walked in with a knife in her hands. She'd had enough of the constant beatings, and standing passively by as her husband nearly killed their son. "Mama," the boy cried. "No!" "Stop it, Bo. Stop hitting him. He didn't do nothing to deserve this. All I did was marry my cousin and try to make you happy. All you've done is beat us and drink up all the money. I'm done." The hand shook as she clutched the knife in front of her. Her eyes were scared, glancing from the boy to Bo. Bo turned away from the bloody mess of his son to his wife. He curled his lips into a menacing snarl and took a step towards the woman. She took a step back, another step back, another step back. Now there's no more room to step back. She pressed her back up against the wall, tensing in fear. He continued his slow, choppy pace until he was a foot away from the knife. The woman's eyes widened in terror. He grabbed the knife from her hand and dragged it across the palm, showing her he feared no pain. Then he plunged the blade into her stomach, pulled it out and shoved it in again and again and again. He continued to stab her long past the point of death. The boy had managed to get up and wobble his way outside and fall over by the wall onto the window. Leaning against the wall was the scythe. He started crying again. The dirt on his face was now a muddy substance. The man kicked open the door, ripping the top hinge out. He swung his head from side to side, trying to find the boy so he could share the fate of his mother. The man smiled and walked towards the sound of crying, blood dripping off his knife and face, leaving a crimson trail in his wake. Around the corner, the boy was looking around frantically for something to use as a weapon, much like his mother had. His dark eyes fell upon the scythe. The handle was still in good condition, made of dark wood. The blade wasn't as rusty as the rest of the equipment in the yard. He stood still, sobbing, and gripped the wood. The man came around the bend in the shack, knife poised to stab. The boy was faster. He swung the scythe and struck the man in his forearm. Blood ran down the blade and onto the handle. The screaming man tried to pull his arm free with his other hand, but only succeeded in getting his finger sliced off with a quick jerk of the blade, in an attempt to free it. The boy pulled on the scythe with all his strength. The blade had embedded itself in the bones of the man's arms. The boy gave another monstrous heave, and the blade cut the man's entire forearm and hand in two. The boy had dropped the tool in the grass. An intense feeling of pleasure swarmed his body. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced. It felt warm, almost like a gentle beam of happiness coming forth from causing others pain. It was addicting. He wanted more. He needed more. He glanced at the man and then at the window. His fingers fit almost perfectly into the cut he made along his father's forearm. Bo screamed as his 7-year-old son found the strength to grip the inside of his arm and fling him face first into the glass. The shattered glass cut into Bo's face and eyes, sending new streams of blood onto the ground. The boy dragged his father's face downward, gouging out more skin and scraping bone, evoking another cry of pain from Bo. The boy pulled his father's lacerated face out of the broken window and pushed him onto the blade of a plow that was sticking up towards the sky. He approached, scythe in hand. His father was still gasping for air, but only filling his lungs with alcohol-rich blood. Streams of crimson ran down his face and onto the rusty plow, staining the already reddened metal into a darker, more pure shade of the color. A shadow crossed the man's face as his only son stood over him, blocking the sun with an old scythe. The boy swung the scythe, cleaving the man in twain and loosening organs into a stinking, bloody heap on the grass. That was the end of the beatings. The boy thought he could go inside and wake his mother from her nap. He leaned the scythe against the door frame, but only after he had wiped the blood on the grass. The door creaked, hinge straining from the weight of the wood. His mother, the only one who showed any form of what he thought was affection, lay in a pool of her own blood. The boy crouched down and nudged her shoulder. She didn't move. "Mommy, Daddy is gone. We can be happy now." He continued to shake her, hoping that she would wake up. He remembered that he had beaten his father in a fight and that he wouldn't be hurting them anymore. He turned her over and looked into her vacant eyes. "Mommy's hiding from me," the boy said happily, like it was a game. He shook her once more, pushing a little harder. "Mommy?" He pushed her harder, thinking that she was in a deep sleep. Her body fell over, revealing the stab wounds and the knife sticking out of her like an extra appendage. He fell onto his rump and pushed against the floor until his back was against the wall. He was breathing heavily. like he had run for a great distance. His head shook violently, denying what his eyes had seen. He pulled his knees up to his chest and fell over and started crying again. Tears ran freely down his blood-soaked face. He sobbed till there were no tears left. He was hollow, empty. The boy stood and walked outside. His scythe was still leaning against the wall. "Will you be my friend?" he asked it. A grin sprouted on the boy's face. "We're going to have so much fun!" He grabbed his scythe and started walking inside. He showed the scythe his room, pointing at all the pictures and explaining them to it. The scythe seemed to be drawn to the picture of the burlap man. "Is he your friend too?" the boy asked. He and the scythe had had a conversation no one could hear. They went on talking forever about sweet nothings. His father, the scythe's friends, his mother, the scythe's favorite activity. They had a lot in common. Both had been abandoned and enjoyed causing pain in others. His father's death wasn't murder to them. It was more like a bonding activity. It seemed that the scythe whispered about becoming a burlap man like the one in the picture. The boy agreed, saying it could be fun. He took off his burlap shirt and rope belt, cutting them into pieces that fit around his head. He looked at his hood and rope around his neck and felt something was missing. He asked the scythe and was rewarded with a suggestion: sew a mouth on. The boy thought that his mother had needles and thread somewhere. He found some and cut a smile into the fabric and sewed it back together. It looked beautiful. He looked beautiful. The scythe seemed to agree, taking in his loveliness. The scythe whispered for the boy to go to a path that he had found a week prior. After a few seconds of thought, the boy listened to the scythe and found the path. On it were two people. One was a female with blonde hair and tan skin. The other was a man, the same hair color as his father, but it was cut shorter. He looked strong because muscle was bundled on his arms and legs. Again, the whispering scythe told him to move closer, to the edge of the bushes to get a better look. The people continued to walk up the path, talking and laughing. They both carried sticks that they used to help them move up the gentle incline. The boy rushed out of the woods onto the path and then back into the forest. Both of the people turned around as if to as he reached the safety of the brush. Then they looked at each other, smiled, and continued on up the hill. Yet again the scythe whispered in the boy's ear. This time, it wasn't a polite request. It was an order. Kill them both. This time, the boy sprinted up to the man and swung his scythe, slicing through bone and muscle of the thigh. The woman screamed, closing her eyes tightly as she could. The boy swung his scythe and it caught her in the face, opening a second mouth full of blood. The boy used the momentum of the last swing to bring the scythe around again and open her gut, spilling its contents all over the ground. Both people were dead in a span of 7 seconds. The boy felt great pleasure from the kills and told this to the scythe, who in turn stated that his thirst for blood was satisfied for now. But the scythe told the boy that he was not done yet. He still had work to do. After the scythe had told the boy what to do and exactly how to carry out his will, the boy set to working, stripping the man and woman of clothing, food, and whatever caught his interest. With his work done, the boy grabbed the scythe and headed home. Behind him, 2 people with their faces sliced off and stomachs torn open were erected on twin crosses made from fallen logs the boy had found and bound together with vines. In their chest and stomach cavities was hay. The next day, papers had headlines of ScareCrow Killer.